Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Crane, and I am the Program Director at the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And you are listening to Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. We are here to connect with you, network, discuss business, and all things creative entrepreneurship. We are streaming live out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, a room designed for Chicago's small business community, located at 2112, Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. We have a new website created with our community of creative entrepreneurs in mind to serve as a resource, a place where you can find jobs, events, workshops, education, and our music advisory. So now you can actually go there, sign up for office hours, and talk to me on Fridays, set up like 15-minute time slots and talk about what you're building or what you're interested in or what you're looking to connect with. So very exciting. Go to cceglobal.org and check that out. The Global Industry Spotlight today is on Inès Bensalem, founder and CEO of Onset, an app that allows creators access to a network, talents, and employment opportunities in a free, efficient, and easy way to connect creators locally and beyond borders, and contribute to build equity in the creative industries. Starting as an independent director and producer in France, Inès directed and produced acclaimed short films, UN Women France Grand Jury Prize, Amnesty International, before becoming a professional producer of international award-winning feature-length documentaries and fiction films. Realizing how difficult it is to enter the creative industry without a network, to access jobs and talent in an efficient and simple way, she founded Onset, an app that helps artists cast, crew, and talent scouts to connect around audiovisual, performing arts, and photography projects for professionals and students. Thanks to a smart matching technology, Onset helps you target jobs that match your profile and talents that match your search in real time. Hello, Inès.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation for a couple of reasons. First of all, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. You are doing similar work to what I'm doing, right?
True.
So coming from more of the film sector, but of like, how do we make it easier? How do we create a more equitable, sector for film, for people to find and have access to jobs, opportunities, to networks? I loved learning about Onset, and I'm looking forward to talking about it today. But to give us a little background, talk about kind of your start in film and documentaries, and then leading into Onset.
Sure. First, thanks for having me. So I started as a journalist actually because I was passionate about people and I wanted to tell their stories. I always say that my favorite people in the world was Lois Lane when I was growing up, going on the field and finding stories. And so I started this way. And being on the field and talking to all these people, I actually wanted to know more. And I kind of started documentary for this reason, because you had more time to treat the subject. And then spending so much time with documentary, then I said, okay, we can maybe try to do fiction and write about all these experience, but in a more maybe artistic way. So this is how I got into film, because I was passionate about the image, but also about the storytelling.
And so, as a journalist, so you started as a journalist,
Sure.
And that transition of so you're good at telling the story, of getting the story from the person, but how do you portray that story visually? What was the transition into that? Just being able to kind of like, okay, now be behind the camera instead of,
Yeah. Well, actually, I started because I didn't know how to get into the industry. I
Right.
started at 17 with no network, no money,
Mhm.
and you need, to understand the path to this industry.
Right.
So I started with a theater school. And I was
Okay.
actually in front of the camera as an
Ah.
actress. But I was never professional. I
Right.
did that because I like that. And
Yeah.
when you see movies for the first time, the only thing you see is the actors, right?
Right.
So I started like that, and this was very profitable for me because even if I understood that I would not be an actress, I met my partner in crime in the school, and he was the one I started to write short film with.
Okay.
And he was the screenwriter, I was the director. And I mean, how do I started as a director is because I had always something to say about the scripts that I received as an actress,
Right.
even the basic ones. And I said, okay, maybe I'm in the wrong side of the camera. So this is how I started. And when you do films without money, then you do everything.
Right.
You do the editing,
Yeah.
you do the screenwriting, you do the directing, and you do your DP.
Mhm.
And this is how I actually understood also how the industry worked by
Okay.
doing things on the field myself.
So I mean, and that's I feel like how every entrepreneur starts, right? It's like I want to do something, and but I need to figure out all the different positions because I'm gonna do it myself, right? I don't have a big budget, I don't have a big team. You know, that's the goal eventually. But to be able to create things, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. And what's amazing, and this is something that, you know, for me, I can talk about in personal experience, is you get to learn. You're not maybe an expert at everything, but you get to know what does it take, right? What does it take to get a film done? What are the different positions? You know, what are the opportunities? What are the careers? So you learn all this knowledge, it sounds like, and then you have some success in filming some documentaries, and then you create Onset, right?
Exactly.
So talk about that a little bit.
So what I did is that I started with no network and no money, and I had to catch my to catch up on the information because we didn't understand the access to information.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically created a tool when I became a professional and realized that it was the same when you were a professional because you were just relying on who you know and or who your network knows, and you lose a lot of time. So I created the tool that I wanted to have when I started in the industry. So Onset is an app that helps you as a cast and crew receive targeted jobs for your profile, but also collaborations,
Mm-hmm.
and as a talent scout to receive targeted talents for your search. Thanks to a smart matching technology, and the access to jobs and talents is free for all. And our value relies really on the fact that we want to onboard all the industry and evolve as a LinkedIn for creatives.
I love
because yeah, it's only word of mouth, right? It's
Yeah.
only who you know.
Absolutely. It is absolutely who
Yeah.
you know. And getting into the technology space, right? What was your experience with that? So you have this, background in creative and filming and journalism, and now you're creating an app.
Yes.
So talk about that process of, okay, so now we're going to be doing technology. You have the idea, but how do you build the technology around it?
Exactly. Well, you surround yourself with a great team.
Right.
So this is what you do, especially when you don't have the capital to start.
Right.
So I have two co-founders
Awesome.
that are programmers, and the funny thing is that the screenwriter I used to do short films with,
Mm-hmm.
he's also a programmer. So
Okay.
well,
Yeah.
dream
Perfect.
team.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
actually, we were doing all these films together, and then we just sat on table one day and say, oh, that would be great to have this tool, but how will we make it?
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, well, I actually did programming to have some money while doing artistic jobs,
Right.
because it's not always very profitable to
What are
do
you talking
artistic-
about?
This is very hard. So he actually did programming studies, and he was a programmer as well.
Okay.
And I had the entrepreneurship experience, because when you are a producer, you are doing that. You're searching for money, you are
Mhm.
selling your
Right.
film all the time.
Right.
So I said, okay, we actually have complementary skills to build this tool. And so we sat down and we said, okay, what are our needs? What are the industry's needs? And we started to talk to a lot of people, because our experience was our own, but we needed also to have others.
Let's pause there for a second.
Sure.
So this is really important for entrepreneurs out there. This is called market research.
Yes.
Make sure that the tool that you're building is actually needed, right?
Exactly.
And that it's solving the problem, a problem that you think exists, but you also need to check with others. I just want to pause that, because that seems to be a big thing when with a lot of companies of, I had this great idea, I want to build this tool, but who have you talked to? So keep going.
And this is even worse when you come from the industry, because you have the impression that you know it all.
Right.
That your experience is a general experience, and actually talking to people
Mhm.
makes you realize that you have multiple targets, that
Right.
they don't have the same needs. And for example, for Onset, what was the major difference was people below 30 years old and people up that age
Yeah.
didn't actually respond the same way to this idea. And
So
this
what were the
project.
responses? Under 30 were excited,
Yes.
and over 30 were like, nah.
It will never work. Basically,
Is that just is that just people getting older and more cynical, or
no, I think that they grew up in the industry with their own tools, because
right.
it's hard to
Mhm.
get to to know the path, but
Right.
once you get there and you actually did it with word of mouth and your own network, then you say, well, the industry doesn't work that way. We will never use a tool to connect. And this is what I say, is that people below 30 grew up with apps. They use
Mm.
apps for everything, and they
Right.
crave for that. They actually grew up with the idea that you have to sell yourself all the time, and they use Instagram to do it. They use sometimes Facebook and more Instagram, but
Right.
so they find jobs on there.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, so if they use social media to do that and they are not actually designed to do that, why wouldn't they just use a targeted tool that
Right.
will help them promote themselves and find jobs?
Yeah, and I think what I've seen in the industry recently, and I can only speak for the music industry, is people who are building communities
Yeah.
that are around kind of resources and access to jobs and supportive in a sense, right? So you're able to share industry secrets or talk about, a job that you had, and being able to build community around that. And at the same time, you're giving resources, you're connecting people. I think these type of tools are important and needed, and especially with Instagram being so massive, and all of these social platforms being, there's so many people. In my mind, there is a need for smaller niche communities, right? That are
Exactly.
more kind of hyper focused on one thing.
But also because our industry is very complex, and you need
Mhm.
to understand it from within to actually propose a targeted tool. But you need also to dedicate yourself to this tool.
Yeah.
And our industry is full of passionate people that don't want to give up their artistic careers to build a tech company.
Yeah.
And but you also need to give up your expectations and your own intuitions and really to talk to people. And this is what I've been doing even here in the US, because I don't know if maybe we'll speak about it later, but
Mhm.
it's a good moment to do so. I came here without no expectations, because Onset is active in France and Belgium. But I
Right.
came here to say, okay, let's do a market research. Let's talk to as many artists as possible and see, how do you connect? How do you access jobs? Is your mindset different from Europeans? And I was so surprised to say that actually it's the same thing.
Oh, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
And you feel like the industry's similar too?
Yes.
Just the way it works?
Well, yeah, except for the unions, because you do have a different way of dealing with unions here. So
But you do have unions
we do, but in a different way.
in a different way.
Because in France, the unions, when you hire someone,
Mhm.
in every position, actually you are automatically union, because
Right.
as a producer you pay actually the union charge,
Ah.
and you get protected either way, that you are a DP or an actor, the same person, it doesn't matter. Here you have unions for particular jobs. So this is different.
Okay.
And this was the main actually difference, but it doesn't actually change the core of what we do.
Right.
It's connecting people.
Right. Okay. And so that was the main. So there wasn't any differences. That's really interesting. I was wondering, like, that was my next question was,
Yeah.
okay, so you're based in France and Belgium, is the industry look different there? Do the tools, or are the frustrations the same?
Well, the main problem I'm trying to solve is the same here and there. It's how do you access to in the information, and the information being access to jobs, access to collaboration projects, and access to talents. And this is the same way. They use Facebook groups, Instagram, and
Right.
word of mouth. And the
Right.
problem with access to information, and this is what I say all the time, is that because we're talking about equity and diversity, but we need to actually try to solve the real problem. The real problem is access.
Mhm.
Who gets access? It's always someone who already knows someone. And to have this kind of network, it means that you are from a special background. When you are far from big cities, when you don't have the network, usually it always targets the same people.
Yeah.
And so these people will actually get tired trying to find for the information and will give up, and we lose so many talents along the way. My goal is actually to keep them and to give them the tools to make their work a little bit easier.
I love this idea about collaboration, right?
Yeah.
Of putting something out there of like, hey, let's collaborate. I'm looking for music for this, or a scene for this, or being able to kind of put projects out there to the world and say, let's collaborate on that. Can you talk about that tool specifically, or
Sure.
that aspect of Onset?
The fact that you create, that you connect
Yeah.
locally and beyond borders, yes, because artistic projects are also made with different layers.
Right.
The layers are the talents and all the inspiration you can get, but the layers are also actually moving, because you move depending on the setting, right? When
Right.
you're doing a film, you move depending on the venues you do as a musician.
Right.
So you need actually to move a lot, but you need to get access to a network in all these cities, and you don't have time to build a network from scratch every time. So this is why we made a tool that can connect you with people wherever you are. And for example, sometimes, I was here and I met people that were working between LA and Albuquerque, or Chicago and New York, or New York and LA. And then you have to be able to get access to opportunities in real time wherever you work. And for example, on Onset, you can just put all the jobs you do, all the fields of activity you do, so audiovisual, performing arts, and photography, but also all the cities you want to work in. And you don't have to lose time anymore. Everything
Right.
comes to you.
Yeah, and I feel like too, especially, I know from the actor standpoint, people don't need to be in the locations anymore.
Exactly.
You can send videotape of a tryout or an audition. I was trying to think of the word tryout, audition, and yeah, I love this idea of people who don't have access to the cities, major cities, right, where there's like a lot of resources and just even a collective knowledge of
Sure.
what's out there.
Yeah.
I think for me, from my experience as a musician, it took me so long to figure out just how the industry worked, right? Who were the players? How did this whole thing? And it was a lot of trial and error. And I think it's changed a little bit now because of the internet and access. But at the same time, there's so much information out there that you don't necessarily know, what's accurate. And I think it's really it's helpful to have these communities where it's like, okay, here are the type of jobs. Here are the jobs that are out there. Here's the potential work here, and there's work here. I mean, just to be able to know that exists. Maybe you don't even get those jobs, but just that knowledge is a win.
Exactly.
I think in a lot of
But
ways.
you say that with internet things are easier, but this is actually, I think you're still limited to what you know, because even now, people within the same university, I'm going to art schools, they
Right.
have a theater department, they have a cinema department, they have music departments, and
Right.
they could collaborate with each other first. They have actually the real information of going there and connecting with people. They don't know how to do that.
Right.
Because you have to sell yourself all the time.
You mean connecting with people like to get work?
Yes,
like outside of the school system.
To get work, but also actually between each other to collaborate. When
Oh,
you
between
start,
departments.
yes, because when you start and you make a short film, you need actors, you need DPs, you need sound engineers, color graders.
Right.
And where do you go to get them? You could get them within the universities, but people don't have necessarily the knowledge or the way or the right tools, or even sometimes the personality to do so, because you have to sell yourself all the time. And the question is, as an artist, what is really your job? Do you accept that selling yourself is part of your job? Or do you say, my job is to be an artist? I have the skill, and I don't necessarily want to sell myself all the time. I just want to get to the opportunities. This is the right question to ask.
Yeah.
And right now with a tool like Onset, you can actually just focus on your talent.
Right.
And I think this is important. But get access to the information is still super hard when you have like 100 Facebook groups,
Right.
and you have to lose time going through them all. And also sometimes you're not here in front of your computer right now at 10 a.m. and you miss the opportunity because already you have 100 applications already sent,
Right.
and you were not the first one, and your application is not there. In Onset, you receive everything in real time on your phone.
Yeah.
And this is easier, and you don't lose and miss on opportunities anymore.
And do you find that like movie houses and production houses are excited about this tool or curious about it, or what's their take on that?
Well, it depends on the countries. For example, like really, the mindset is very different.
Right.
For example, in France, the trust building takes more time, and right now we are older. It's 3 years, so right now, yes, definitely, we have professionals on it using it, and feature films and music bands, and it's becoming quite huge, and word of mouth essentially. So it's funny because we actually use the problem of our industry, that everything works with word of mouth,
Right.
to our advantage for Onset, because it works also with word of mouth.
Right.
People say, oh, this tool is great,
Right.
just
It's helpful.
come here.
I got a job. Right.
Yeah.
I got some work.
In the US, it's the excitement was very quick, very fast, because you actually jump on opportunities and the mindset is different. So what we did is that we partnered with schools very quickly to build the first database in the US, in New Mexico and Illinois. And it's been great, a great journey. As I said, I think the excitement differ depending on the age. The ones who already are in the industry would be maybe a bit more skeptical, because they would say, okay, I'm waiting to see if it's actually going to work here, or oh, do you really build a network with an internet, a tech tool right now?
Right.
Is it, can we actually bypass the word of mouth? And what I say to them is, I'm not bypassing the word of mouth, I'm adding a new tool for you to be more efficient. You can still get word of mouth, but you can also use Onset and do both, you know?
Right.
I always say that it's not, about full digital or full physical anymore. It's phygital. You do both.
Yeah. You do both.
Yes.
And I can see how this also can be really helpful for universities. From my experience, and is that universities can be absolutely incredible at training someone in the craft, right? The craft of film, understanding, but the actual industry part of it, right? Of getting into the industry, there can be a disconnect.
Exactly.
And being able to provide tools to make some connection for students, right? I think back to when I left conservatory to play music, and it was just like, good luck. There was no like, talk to this person,
Exactly.
or like, you should get this publication, or this will really help you kind of build your career. Think about it. Was like, there was none of that, right? So being able to offer that tool, especially for students who are coming right off, I think is really helpful. And I love this idea of departments collaborating, right?
Yes.
Because it's almost representative of some of the problems we have here in Chicago, of industries being very siloed and no one really talking to each other, and there
Exactly.
being a lot of potential for collaboration, for shared resources, for greater creative industry sector growth. But it's hard, right? People are kind of stuck in like, this is what we do. We don't really go into that.
But this is not even true. This is the problem. People have these labels, but when I was speaking to actual artists on the field, you actually see a set deck professional
Right.
that is also an indie filmmaker on the side and
Right.
searching by himself for talents for his own movies.
Right.
You have an actress who's also a producer in photo shoots, and she's
Yeah.
also a dancer from time to time and a singer. You have
Yeah.
musicians who have their own bands, so they're doing performing arts, but they also are scoring for film. And this is what I say, is that our industry is complex. As an artist, you have different layers, different skills, different jobs. You work in different fields, and this is why Onset is now so valuable, is because we actually do the matching cross industries, but also you can add all the jobs that you are interested in.
Right.
You could be an editor and a filmmaker, and we want you to get access to these opportunities.
Yeah.
And we want you to create more value, and we want you to actually promote yourself with all the skills that you got. And this is what we do.
So, yeah, I just, when we first connected about the tool, I was really like, this is great. This is something I feel like there is a need for. And the kind of way you've built it and your thought process behind it just seems very thorough, experienced, and exciting, right? So being an entrepreneur and being someone that has kind of created their own career, sounds like, doing lots of different things. How do you deal with, this is the question, how do you deal with fear and doubt? And then when I asked Inès offline, she was like, I'm never afraid.
I'm fearless.
I'm fearless.
The terrible condescending, answer. No, you always have doubt. I think that how you build a great company,
Right.
even in the creative industries, it's that you always doubt and you always question yourself. But this is how being surrounded by the right people is important, because you actually can discuss your fears and doubts.
Yeah.
And you can
absolutely.
actually find compromise and find solutions together. And I am very lucky to be surrounded by a great team. But what I would say also is the typical answer is that be open to opportunities and don't be afraid to get out there, because the worst answer you can get is no.
Right.
and this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
You can deal with a no. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So just do it, but think about the process and take the
Hmm.
time to reflect on how you will actually achieve your goals. um and yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, your energy says that, that you just go like, this is what I do. This is my technology. This is my goals. Are you interested? Okay, great. Okay, no, next. Like, let's just keep it going. And I think, it's a lot of people that I've talked to recently who are founders of businesses. A lot of it has been sometimes that no that I got 6 years ago. Now they have emailed me and been like, "Hey, I would like you to, like, I would like your business now."
Yes, exactly.
And so you just it's like you don't know kind of the foundation that you're laying down. Um, what is something that you won't compromise on, with your career or with Onset?
The core value of why we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is really to think long term and to build a more inclusive industry. And we will only make that with time and with a lot of efforts. And the core values will never be compromised. If I have, in a general, if you have to compromise your values to do a business, then your business for me is worthless because it loses its soul.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about why we were, I mean, my team is that we work together with the same goal, but also with the same values and the same energy. And we are also willing to help each other never lose track of why we are doing this.
Yeah. And what is next for Onset? What's happening the next year? What are some goals and things that we can look forward to?
Well, we launched the mobile app 2 days ago. So thank
Congratulations.
you so much on
It's
both
awesome.
stores. So you
Yeah.
can just go and check it out. And we are open for feedbacks also. So
Yeah. So I'm gonna put below just the website so people can.
sure. We are also the links of the App Store and the Play Store. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I can send it. I mean,
Yeah. No, we'll definitely put that on there.
and the next steps, well, it's right now to fundraise. We are actually building. I mean, we are connecting with great partners financially and just on the field, because what we want to do is to partner with people that knows the field, because
Mm-hmm.
as I said, the future is digital,
Right.
and we're doing the digital part, but we want to move along with people who know the field on the ground.
Yeah.
And we don't want to bypass them. We want to partner, and this is very important in the collaborative process. So this is what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea, and it's something that I think about a lot, of how important the digital presence is, right? But if you don't have something, boots on the ground, or people that are actually in it, people you can talk to, connection points, I think that's really just as important, because it'll build community.
Sure.
You can build a digital community, but I like this word. What do you call it?
Phygital.
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 Build a phygital community. I like it. I might use that one at some point. But that's a great word, in terms of just being able to kind of explain of like how this thing works. In terms of being inspired, is there a movie, a book, a song, a podcast that inspires you professionally or personally that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, actually, I just finished the book Hooked. That was given to me by a friend, and he's passionate about UX design. And I think this is a great way to understand your target more. As I said, everything is about learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's a learning process all the way, even when you're actually on top. And this was actually a great book to challenge my ways of acquisition and actually retaining the audience and the user base, but also a good way to always question your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll put that book, we'll share that book with everyone, so they can check that out. Hooked. Um, I love the fact, I mean, you strike me as such a curious person, of like, how do I do this or how do I do that? And then actually, seeking the knowledge of it, right? I mean, the fact that we started with you being a journalist, and then to being in front of the camera, and then to producing, and now to tech startup extraordinaire from France, now breaking into the U.S. market. That's quite incredible. So I really want to say, like, honor you in terms of that. That's a lot of growth. I mean, that's an incredible journey, and the fact that it feels like it's going well, or is it going well? We hope, right? But that you're building a tool to really help the industry, and I think for me on a personal level, I always connect with that, right? It's an interesting point that you brought up earlier about are you an artist that just wants to be an artist, or are you an artist who wants to sell themselves? And that those are really hard things, right? I mean, for example, when I learned to play music, I didn't think to myself, well, this is going to be my moneymaker, right? It was, no, I love it. It's what I am.
Exactly.
It's who I am. I don't have a separate identity. I do this because it brings me joy. It fills my life. Um, but then at the same time, I'm like, well, how do I live off of this, right? How do I find jobs? And being able to solve those problems for artists, I think, is a really important feat. So, I thank you to you for building these kind of tools that can help people have a break in, or be able to just have more access to the creative industries.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Thank you so much. And congratulations to you as well, because I saw what you do. And this is very important. And this is what I said about being digital. It's because you do this on the ground,
Yeah.
and you're here, and
Yeah.
Chicago, and I think you're expanding as well.
Right.
And this is very important to connect with people like you.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
would love to work with you as well.
yes, I
So
think
that
we
would
will
be nice.
continue this. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come here today and talk to us. It's been great. It's been a wonderful conversation. Again, my name is Daniel Crane, and I'm the program director for the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship. And this was another episode of Global Industry Spotlight, a conversational series focused on providing resources and insight for the creative entrepreneur. We are streaming out of the Comcast Business Startup Studio, located at 2112 Chicago's first music, film, and tech incubator. Thank you to Comcast Business and Shure for providing the tools necessary to make our programming possible. Visit cceglobal.org to check out the new website. We have lots of really cool things happening, so go there, cceglobal.org. And tune in next week for another episode of Global Industry Spotlight next Thursday with Nick Heineman. He's also on our music advisory group, but he's the executive director of Civil. Again, we thank to everyone for tuning in, and we will speak with you soon. Take care.